Okay, here we are. Here's our next one. This one is called Feudalism. Okay, so I'm going to go through a couple things first, just like last time, and then you're going to draw a couple of things with me and write a couple things down. So you need a blank piece of paper. All right, here we go. Good stuff. Okay, feudalism. All right, now let me go back. I need to go back to something before I get to this. I want to go back to this, and you never wrote all this down, but this is about Constantine the Great, and he's a very significant sort of person. And one of the things I asked you to do was talk about look up the 4 things that made Constantine the Great important. And then when you get back here to the importance, well, he basically, number 1, legalized Christianity. During the Roman Republic period and for most of the Roman Empire period, Christianity was illegal. Christians were punished for being Christian. Christians went into hiding. He legalized it. He did it for a particular reason. He believed the Christian God helped him win a battle that made him emperor. The second thing is that I showed you in those maps the other day, that he split the Roman Empire in half to make it easier to govern. I talked about, remember I drew a red line down the middle of the yellow Roman Empire in those maps the other day? Okay, so it's Constantinople. All right. The third thing is that ultimately you could argue that Constantine causes Christianity to split. Roman Catholics and Eastern Orthodox Christians in each side. Okay, but what I want to focus on here, number 4, is he created a group of people called serfs. Okay? Who are these people? These people were farmers. They were poor farmers. During the Roman times, they were called plebeians. Okay? And plebeians worked for wealthy landowners called patricians during Roman times. Okay, so as the Roman Empire is nearing its end, what was starting to happen is that these plebeian farmers were leaving the cities. They were just up and leaving. And so suddenly there was a crisis of lack of food in the Roman Empire. And so what Constantine did was he said, okay, all you plebeians are no longer allowed to leave the farms. You can't just leave. You are tied to the land by heredity, meaning you have to stay, your kids have to stay, you have to live on this land and farm this land, your grandkids have to stay on this land and farm this land. Okay, so the question becomes, why were the plebeians leaving? Okay, now you watched Gladiator and you saw a scene in Gladiator where the bread was being thrown to the crowd, and that was given away for free. And so what was happening is that plebeians were leaving the rural agriculture areas and moving to the cities to enjoy what was called bread and circus. Okay, now bread obviously was the free food that was being given away. Circus has to do with the particular building I'm about to show you, and I've sent you these pictures. The circus, the word circus here comes from this particular building right here. This is a model of a famous building called the Circus Maximus that was right in downtown ancient Rome. And this building was used for chariot racing. That's what it was used for, a very popular sport. And there were very few rules in the circus. The Circus Maximus held about 150,000 people. It divided the wealthy part of town and the plebeian part of town. So each group of people could have easy access to go to the circus. Here's sort of a famous painting of what it might have looked like at its heyday. Pretty amazing. And this movie has been made several times. One of the greatest movies of all time, and my favorite movie of all is called Ben-Hur. And Ben-Hur is this famous story of a Jewish man who lives at the same time as Jesus Christ. But the most famous scene, and this movie's old, it was filmed in 1959, it's been remade. It was a remake, it's been remade since twice, but this is the classic, this is my favorite movie. The most famous scene of all of Hollywood is in this movie, the chariot race scene. And it's not in Rome, but it's actually in Jerusalem where the scene takes place. And the Romans built colosseums and circuses wherever they wherever they controlled the city. So the circus and these games were free, okay? And so the bread was free. So you're a plebeian, you're working on the farm, and you're hearing about in the city, oh, I could go to the city and I could get free entertainment and free food for 150 days in a row. Why am I working my you-know-what off for this wealthy guy's farm. It's stupid of me to do this. And so that's why he did this. That's why Constantine did this. Okay, so now back to our discussion of feudalism. Okay, so try to keep up with me here. You need to write this down. Okay, so here we go. Feudalism is a political and economic and social system that dominated the Middle Ages. All right? Politics, economics, social. Okay? The best way to sort of think about this and to clearly understand what this is we're going to do a drawing together, and we're going to call this drawing the feudal pyramid. And I'm going to get to my point about serfs here in just a moment. So if you want to watch this for just a moment, that's fine too. Okay, so here's what the feudal pyramid, this is a population distribution chart, and this is basically a kingdom, because the guy at the top is the guy named the king, and that's singular. He's the head of the territory. Okay, head of the territory. He's the main guy. He has been picked among a group. He's picked from one family, from a group of families. I'm going to have 4 levels here, from about 4 different levels. Okay, and underneath the first group that's underneath the king is a group of guys called the lords. Lords, all right? And these are wealthy noblemen, okay, that own the land. Okay? They're the landowners. Now I have, look, I have, what, 7 lines. It wasn't 7 lines always. I only got 3 guys, 3 lords. Lords written 3 times. It could be more, it could be less. But the king was usually one of these. The king was a landowning family. Came from a landowning family, and he was somebody who was picked by the lords. His family was picked by the lords to eventually become the king, and then that guy's son and grandson, etc., became kings afterwards. Okay? Now these lords owned such huge tracts of land that underneath the lords, they had to have guys who would help them out with the land. Okay? And these guys became what were called, and again, these numbers, don't get too caught up in how many numbers there are. These guys were called vassals. 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 Okay, and these are a lot. There's a lot of them. And these guys were also knights during, knights in armor during warfare. They maintained the land. Okay? So the lord had to break up his land into parts, and each part of his land had a particular vassal that lived there. And then, of course, here's my point of my earlier part of my story. What's the bottom of the feudal pyramid? And that is underneath each one. And you can see I'm really filling this in because this is where the vast majority of the population, this is a population, there's only one guy at the top. There's all these people at the bottom. This is a vast population distribution chart. And of course, my point is, who are these people at the bottom? They're the farmers. They're the people that can't go anywhere. They are the serfs, as I just described to you. And by this time, as history has gone along and the years have gone along and the generations have gone along, these serfs have been tied to the land for years and years and years. And they are the workers of the land. Okay? They're the workers of the land. So that's the feudal pyramid right there, everybody. Okay? And so there's a system of loyalty that goes up. Okay? You are loyal to the group above you. What did the serfs get out of it? Well, we'll see that in just a moment. One of the things serfs believed they got out of it was they got protection. They believed that they were protected, even though sometimes serfs became part of the king's army. The king promised to protect the serfs so they could do the work. They felt protected and safe within this pyramid, this kingdom, if you will. Okay? All right, so just a couple other things here. Let's write this down. What does this mean? This all goes uphill. Lords swear loyalty. Lords swear loyalty to their king. Okay? And what I got going here? Lords swear loyalty to the king. They swear loyalty to the person above them. lords would take their huge tracts of land and they would grant him to a vassal. Vassal doesn't own the land, okay? A vassal runs the land. And the land that he gets to run has a house where he can live, and that is called a manor house. And the people obviously are there. They are called serfs, okay? Now, the vassal's responsibility is to make sure that the land is productive agriculturally, okay? So this gives a vassal a source of income. This tract of land was called a fief. Sometimes I hear it pronounced fief, okay? And so the vassal's job was to make sure that that thing got up and running correctly and was in good shape, and that the land produced agriculture quickly, all right? And then, once he got it running, look, the vassal wasn't getting his hands dirty. The vassal could take off and do things that he needed to do to serve his lord and king, okay? And so we call these things obligations, and there were 4 of them. There were 4 obligations. One was called attendance at court. So I guess the most famous way to put this is King Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table. The king, Arthur, when he wanted to have a meeting with his lords, the Knights of the Round Table were really his lords. Hey, when he called a meeting, you had to go. When a lord called a meeting of his vassals, a vassal had to go. What did they discuss? Well, they usually discussed military duty. The king wants to go to war. So if the king wants to go to war, we got to go to war. So police or military duty, all right? Hey, got to go. Lord has a meeting with the vassals. He tells his vassals, go raise a serf army. We're going to war. The third thing is hospitality. This is sort of has to do with, let's say the Lord is traveling and checking out all his lands. So a vassal has to be ready at a moment's notice. Oh, the Lord is here. So we have to feed him, we have to house him, we have to entertain him, hospitality. And then last of all, of course, is taxes. And this tax system burdened the serfs more than any other. You may be surprised that serfs paid taxes. You may be surprised that this is possible. The serfs probably seem like virtual slaves in this system, and you were very right. A serf's life was very difficult, but the serfs did make an income, and I'm going to try to describe that to you here in just a matter of moments. The serf's life was tough. There is no doubt about that. So, what did they do? They took all the produce. Okay, so let's say a fief, which is a farm, produces cabbage. Okay, so if you go to the grocery store, you want some cabbage, you go to the produce section. So I'm going to call it the produce that is produced on the farm. And there are parts of the land in which the produce produced belonged to the serfs. And then the serfs could do with their cabbage on their strips of land as they saw fit. They could eat it, but they could also sell it to make money for themselves to pay their taxes. Okay, this is called tenement farming. In other words, you don't own the land, you own the produce produced. Tenement housing is the same kind of concept. You may own the building, but you don't own the land upon which the building sits. Okay, you may still have to, even though you're a building owner, you may have to pay rent still because you don't own the land. That's the concept behind it. The other half of the fief was the vassal's produce produced. Okay, so here's what we're going to do to finish this off. We're going to draw a little map. We'll draw a little map of a farm just for laughs, and you'll see, sort of get an idea. So I'm going to call this thing a fief. Okay, and so just imagine, if you will, this is a farm. Okay, and through the middle of the farm runs a river. Okay, just like so, and here's the manor house. Okay, that's where the vassal lives, and then the serf village is on each side of the river. They live in small huts. Okay, there's a bridge here, a bridge there, etc. And then this thing, like I said, produces massive amounts of cabbage. So bear with me here while I draw this. Okay, so these are all the crops of cabbage that is produced on this farm, this fief, if you will. Okay, and they want to maximize all of this. Okay, this is coming along very well. Agriculture, there you go. Here I am talking about agriculture again. There we go. Okay. Now, what you have to imagine is done here is that this farm is sort of like divided in half. You have to sort of imagine a division in half like so. So, who owns, I always say, who owns the dirt? Okay? Who owns the land? Who owns exactly what is going on here? Who owns the dirt? Well, the answer is the Lord. Okay? He doesn't even live here. You ever term landlord? That's where this comes from. Okay, so he owns the dirt because he is the land owner. Now the question is, who owns the produce produced on this half? Who? I'll write this lightly. Owns produce produced on this half. This half. Well, it's the vassal. Okay, so the vassal, he gets all of that. Okay? Singular, by the way. All right, now, you see this house right here of that serf? Okay? Here's his strip of land right here. Okay? So who owns produce produced over here? Question mark. It's the serfs, plural. Okay? And this serf only owns the cabbage in that strip of land. The vassal gets all of that as an income. The serf only gets that. Okay? One serf. So this half is for the serfs. Okay? And basically what they sort of had to do is they had to work the land. They had to work the land based on the priority. The priority was the vassals' quote-unquote land, the vassals' produce. They had to work on 3 or 4 days a week. And this guy right here could only work on his tenement for 3 days a week. Okay? So now what you have here is really a system that keeps everything in place. Okay? The burden of taxation is going to fall upon the serfs. The king is going to charge his lords a tax. The Lord is not going to pay the tax. He's going to charge the vassals a tax. Okay? Right? You understand what I'm saying? The Lord is not going to pay the tax to the king. He's going to charge the vassals a tax. All right? Well, the vassal's not going to pay his taxes out of his pocket. What's he going to do? He's going to charge his serfs taxes. He's going to collect all those taxes from the serfs and more probably to line his own pockets. Okay? And then he's finally going to pay his tax to his lord, and the lord is going to probably charge a little bit more to line his pockets. And then finally, the lord pays the tax to the king. So, how much comes out of the pockets of this group right here? I would argue none. So the burden of taxation falls upon the serfs. The serfs are stuck in this situation. It's designed to keep the serfs stuck in this situation. Okay? And I would further sort of point out that this is a vertical system. There's not much trade going on. I'll just finish this off by saying, this is a self-sufficient system. There's no trade happening. Trade is eliminated. And that's another reason why you have dark ages. Trade, what moves along trade routes? Stuff, goods, services, animals, but also ideas. So if trade slows down, guess what else slows down? The movement of ideas. Okay, everybody? All right, that's it for that one. Hope you enjoyed it. Okay, kind of an interesting way to look at economics, but that was the way it was. Okay, we'll see you soon for another one. Bye.